Namaste nerds, this is Navanad, the budget pub stomper. We're going to be talking about Animar Soul of Elements today. So this is kind of a little bonus video. I did a little bit of a poll or tried to ask for a vote. Didn't get a lot of response, but we'll just say Animar definitely won the vote. So we're going to be doing a deck tech on Animar, and I've got time off this week, so we're going to put out an additional video this week. And this is going to be the additional video. I want to say some things about building this deck. So I have long suspected that Animar at $100 would be pretty good. Top tier, in fact. But I was worried. I hadn't actually tried to build it at $100, and I've never played against it as a $100 build. But I was a little worried about the mana base. It's a 3-color deck. So the land bases for 3-color decks can get a little bit expensive for a number of reasons. First, you just need more dual lands and rainbow lands, and second, a lot, and this is kind of the thing people I think don't think about, is a lot of our go-to 2-color lands, like the check lands and the reveal lands, the buddy lands. These lands just, they don't work very well when you've only got, say, 5 mountains and you need to reveal a mountain, or you've only got 6 islands, and you need to have an island in play for your thing to come in untapped. So I thought this was going to be a little bit bigger struggle than it ended up being. I think most of my 2-color mana bases end up being like $6-7 anyway, and this one's only $10. And actually, there's a little bit of a splurge in here. We have the low price on the forest, the Carplucin forest, was like $3, but it's showing up as $4 TCG. Is that right? Interesting. Well, in any case, this is going to cost you $266 or $398. You could remove this and just put in one of the buddy lands or one of the check lands or what, but I wouldn't want to fill my deck with it, with those types of effects. But some of the happy surprises is I didn't realize Fiery Islet was 60 cents. I didn't know that Shivan Reef was down to $1, or Thran Quarry is $1.43. Waterlogged Grove 62 cents. I mean, we ended up being able to use a lot of lands that I thought were going to be out of budget that are actually better than a lot of the lands I have been using. So I'm going to be using that new information that I'm armed with to construct better mana bases, I'd say, for the foreseeable future anyway. I mean, even Flooded Grove is 90 cents. I think these made their way into precons, like all of those. So they kind of flooded the market. Anyway, so we've got a pretty good mana base for only about $10. Not bad for a 3-color deck. Then the other thing is I just wasn't expecting that I would be able to fit some of the kind of traditional key pieces in the deck. But I was able to get, like, we're at $98.93, and I was able to fit Imperial Recruiter, Phyrexian Metamorph, Spellseeker, and Walking Ballista. I didn't think I'd be able to get all of those pieces in, and they're critical, they're crucial when it comes to making your deck like super good. I thought I was going to have to go with some other ideas. And if you're not familiar with the game plan that Animar typically has, like if you're coming from more of like a casual background, then you might be thinking that we're looking to do like, Dork on turn 1, turn 2 Animar, and you're right about that part. And then we're going to be trying to put counters on it and power out like nasty, 10 mana Eldrazi on turn 5 or whatever. But we're not doing any of that. We're going to do really broken things, right? We're not just powering out 10 mana Eldrazi on turn 4. We're doing busted things. Yeah. And I kind of mean that. So what are the busted things that we're doing? Well, let's back up to what are we doing with the deck? Like when we're mulliganing, when we're looking for our starting hand, like what's our plan? And the plan is turn 1 Dork, turn 2 Animar, first and foremost. That's really what you're looking to do. And then you want to have a plan from there. And that plan can be drop a value piece and start grinding. But usually I think the plan ought to be get 4 counters on Animar so that and have a tutor to find your win cons, which we'll talk about. And depending on the win con, actually 2 counters on Animar is often enough to start your little kind of weird little tutor chain. So the deck is going to have a pretty high floor. Like, I think you're going to do real well with it just picking it up straight away. Like game one, I think it'll play real well for you. Won't play itself, but it'll play well. Just kind of with a basic understanding of what's in the deck. But there are some sort of more complex lines that we're going to talk about too. So yeah, we're going to be looking to get a fast Animar, whether that's with turn 1 Dork or like Goldhound or Skirk Prospector, Wild Cantor. We've got a big, like, high number of these 1 mana let us cast Animar on turn 2 creatures, but then we've also got Elvish Spirit Guide, Simian Spirit Guide, Tinderwall. So we're going to get there. We're going to get our turn 2 Animar almost always. Then we can put kind of staxy pieces down. We've got, Phyrexian Revoker will often come down for free. We've got Kinkerbloom, which can either help us get extra counters on Animar. Like, this thing comes down, say you've got 1 counter on Animar. This thing comes down for 1 green mana, and then you can, so Animar gets a counter because you played a creature. And then you can sacrifice it to proliferate, which means you'd get an extra counter. So you'd have to pay mana to sacrifice it, but it's colorless. So basically, you're trading 2 mana in that case for 2 counters on Animar. And like I said, often 2 counters on Animar is enough. And maybe we should talk about what the commander does. I feel like most people that are watching this channel are going to be familiar with this, but in case you're not, Animar is a mana engine and a combo piece. That's what this is going to do for you. And it's like a pretty good Plan C, kind of a Voltron-y, beat-down, big, beefy dude. So it's a kind of a minor win condition in the command zone, but it's a combo piece in the command zone, and it's a mana engine in the command zone. So every time you cast a creature, you're going to put a counter on Animar, and your creature spells that you cast are reduced by 1 generic mana for each counter that is on Animar. And also it has protection from white and protection from black, which are pretty relevant. Those are pretty good colors to have protection from. In a budget world, like, that's going to protect you from a lot of the best removal in the kind of $100 format. No Swords to Plowshare, no Doomblade type effects are going to be taking your guy out. So back to the game plan. We are going to try to get counters on Animar, and then we're going to look to end the game with one of our combos. And the main combos are going to be, we can use, now normally the full power CDH decks will use Baron Master Wizard and Dockside Extortionist. Mostly they use Baron Master Wizard because you can search for it off of Imperial Recruiter. Imperial Recruiter kind of functions as a 1-card win condition in this deck if you understand how it works. And we can't find the Temur Sabertooth, which is kind of unfortunate, but it's a $100 deck. What are you going to do? This is $1.17, and it does a pretty good impression of Baron Master Wizard. It does a real good impression of it once it's in play. We also don't have Dockside Extortionist, so what we do have instead, we've got Peregrine Drake. So keep that in mind when you're casting your shared summons. That is one of your kind of A plus B combos in a way. Now most of the time when you do where are my instants? Shared summons, 5 mana, instant speed, search for 2 creatures, put them in your hand. This is usually just going to be in-step shared summons, untap, win game. But keep this little combo in mind depending on what you've got out or what you've got in your hand. Like if you have Witty Roastmaster, this little combo will just burn everybody out. Witty Roastmaster, whenever a creature enters the battlefield, you're going to ping somebody. So if you can get infinite ETBs by bouncing and replaying Peregrine Drake, because this thing untaps 5 lands, so usually it's going to untap all your lands every time you cast it. And once you've got the cast cost reduced enough to bounce it a couple of times, every time you're bouncing it and recasting it, you're putting an extra counter on Animar, so it really quickly becomes 1 mana to untap 5 lands. So you're paying 1 mana to untap 5 lands. You're using 2 mana to bounce it to your hand. 1 mana to... So it costs 3 to net 5, basically. Or to gain 5, which nets infinite mana, infinite ETBs, and makes your Animar as big as you want it to be. So once you've got a 1 billion Animar, you can cast Walking Ballista and give him 500,000 counters, and then burn the table out with Walking Ballista. Walking Ballista even you can burn the table out with Walking Ballista, or you can burn the table out with Witty Roastmaster, or you can burn the table out with Impact Trimmers, and these kind of all layer together. The key combo piece in the deck, the most important one, is Ancestral Statue at a whopping 14 cents. So this is why I said sometimes you're looking to put 4 counters on Animar. Once you have 4 counters on Animar, you can cast Ancestral Statue for free. And if you can cast this for free, what it does is it bounces a non-land permanent you control back to your hand. Well, it doesn't say return another non-land permanent. So you can return it to your hand. So you cast it for free, bounce it to hand. Cast it for free, bounce it to hand. Cast it for free, bounce it to hand. And your hand's going to get tired, but you're going to have an infinitely large Animar, which will allow you to cast Walking Ballista for 1 billion, turn Animar sideways and start one-shotting people, or draw your deck with Beast Whisperer while you're bouncing and recasting the statue. You can, go effectively infinite mana and draw your deck with a couple of these different approaches, and they lay. And so that's basically what the end of the game is going to look like. If you're winning, is you're going to make infinite mana, draw your deck with Beast Whisperer, find your win cons. You're going to put a Witty Roastmaster or Impact Trimmers into play, and you're going to cast Animar, or you're going to cast Ancestral Statue over and over and over, and burn the table out that way. Or you're going to put 1 billion counters on Animar and use your Walking Ballista to kind of Gatling gun everybody down with that. What are some... So I talked about there's going to be a little bit of complexity. I mean, obviously you're just going to be able to run out your value engines like Grazilax, and oftentimes Orin Frostfang is going to come down for green and turn all of your little useless 1/1s into card draw value engines of their own. You're going to be able to do those things probably just kind of intuitively. You've got interactions, so you can stifle your opponent's win attempts. You've got a pretty good slew of tutors, but we kind of need to know what the tutor targets are. And the tutor targets, often it's just going to be Ancestral Statue and or Walking Ballista, depending on what else you have in hand. A lot of times you'll use Fauna Shaman. You can kind of, and you're going to probably need to tutor chain a bit in this deck. Like maybe you're going to turn your, maybe you'll have to turn your Muddle the Mixture into a Neoform, and then Neoform something into Ancestral Statue. Or maybe you're going to use your Muddle the Mixture to find Weird Harvest, and then you'll use your Weird Harvest to get your Walking Ballista and your Ancestral Statue. But there's so it's probably not too hard to see how Shared Summons becomes kind of a one-card win con. But what might not be as obvious is how Imperial Recruiter becomes a one-card win con. So I'm going to give you the complex version of this line. Depending on where you're at in the game and how many counters Animar has, you may not need to do this really complex version. But this is going to be we're going to be going from the lowest requirements. We're going to grab, we're going to use Imperial Recruiter or some tutor to find Imperial Recruiter. Then we're going to cast the Imperial Recruiter, finding Phyrexian Metamorph. So when we cast the Imperial Recruiter, it puts a counter on Animar. We find Phyrexian Metamorph, we cast it with no mana sometimes, kind of again depending on where you're at, how many counters Animar has. You're going to cast your Phyrexian Metamorph, typically for 0 mana and 2 life. You're going to make a copy of Imperial Recruiter. The copy of Imperial Recruiter is going to find Spellseeker. You're going to cast Spellseeker for 1 blue mana, and again we're putting counters on Animar. And then the Spellseeker is going to get Neoform. We're going to cast the Neoform. Again, this is the most convoluted version. We're going to cast Neoform, sacrificing the Spellseeker, finding the Ancestral Statue. So we're going to turn Spellseeker into Ancestral Statue with Neoform. When we do that, Ancestral Statue is going to come into play. Now we've played all these creatures out so that we've put all the counters on Animar. So we're going to do the little statue dance where it bounces up and down 1,000,000 times. And on the 1,000,001th time, we're going to bounce our Phyrexian Metamorph to hand. We're going to cast it for free. And we're going to copy Imperial Recruiter. We're going to find our Walking Ballista. And we're going to win the game. So that gets us there with very low resources, very low counters on Animar. Now sometimes you'll just skip a step there. Sometimes you'll just go Imperial Recruiter into directly Spellseeker, and then you'll Spellseeker, Neoform Spellseeker, turning it into your Ancestral Statue, do the statue dance, and then bounce the Imperial Recruiter on the last one, and then recast your Imperial Recruiter, finding your Walking Ballista. It's going to depend on the resources that you have, but just know that you've got this line available. The line, again, is any tutor into Imperial Recruiter or naturally draw Imperial Recruiter. Imperial Recruiter finds Phyrexian Metamorph. Phyrexian Metamorph clones Imperial Recruiter. The clone of Imperial Recruiter finds Spellseeker. You cast your Spellseeker, it finds Neoform. You Neoform your Spellseeker into Ancestral Statue. You bounce the Ancestral Statue over and over and over, and then once you've got 1,000,000,000 counters on Animar, you're going to use the last cast to bounce the Phyrexian Metamorph back to your hand. Then you're going to cast for free Phyrexian Metamorph, paying 2 life, to copy Imperial Recruiter, and that is going to find Walking Ballista, and then you're going to win the game with Walking Ballista. So hopefully that's not too much to process. You don't have to do that, right? There's lots of ways to get to this situation. The easiest is just to either naturally draw one of the pieces and tutor for the other, or shared summons, or the deck used to be called Ancestral Animar, and that's because, at one time it was called that, but it went to Harvest Animar, and that's because it made really good use of Weird Harvest. Now, in today's CDH meta, this is a little bit risky because there are so many flash creatures that you really don't want to give somebody a tutor for. Like you could cast your Weird Harvest, X equals 2, and yes, that'll give you your Walking Ballista and your Ancestral Statue, but it might also give somebody whatever instant speed solution to this problem you're posing. But in budget, I think it's pretty safe to go ahead and cast Weird Harvest, X equals 2, and let every player find 2 creatures, and then you just win the game. I don't think we've got that much to worry about when we do this at sorcery speed on our turn, as long as we can immediately win the game from there. Do not cast Weird Harvest and then pass the turn. That's not what we want to do. But basically if you want to count Fauna Shaman, because Fauna Shaman can assemble your entire combo also. We've just got a bunch, just a mega billion ton of 1-card win conditions or 1-card combo assemblers in the deck. So you will consistently be able to assemble the combo once you kind of understand the tutor chains and the lines. Like for instance, if you just have a Muddle the Mixture, you can muddle the mixture into Fauna Shaman, or you can muddle the mixture into Weird Harvest, right? So you can Weird Harvest and find Ancestral Statue Walking Ballista after you muddled for it. Or you can Fauna Shaman into Imperial Recruiter, cast your Imperial Recruiter, find your Spellseeker, play the Spellseeker, find your Neoform, use the Neoform, sacrificing Spellseeker, turning it into Ancestral Statue, do the statue dance, bounce the Imperial Recruiter, recast Recruiter, find your Walking Ballista, win the game, right? There's all kinds of ways to this. In step, we cast Shared Summons, we in-step the Shared Summons, and then we find our Walking Ballista and Ancestral Statue. If our Ancestral Statue is stuck in play or somebody removed it from the game, then we can go with the Temur Sabertooth and Peregrine Drake. We've got Muddle the Mixture for, well, you get the idea. We've got lots of ways to start with one piece and turn it into all the pieces that we need to win the game. And sometimes you can even do that. Like if you've got enough resources, you've got enough, I don't know, counters on Animar, mana in play, you could use shared summons to find the 2 creatures, Malevolent Hermit and Imperial Recruiter, and now you've got a piece that can protect your combo, and a piece that searches up the entire combo. Or you can, if you've got one of these guys in play, it's stuck in play, you can tutor for Temur Sabertooth and then turn that into a 1-card win condition, kind of, again, depending on the situation you find yourself in. Wonder if there's any other notable discussion points in the deck. I think everything else is pretty much kind of what you'd expect to see. We're not playing a ton of like big fatties. I mean, that's just not what we're doing with this deck. I thought maybe we'd have to. I thought maybe we'd end up like putting the kind of big fat like Koglas and the Koglas and the Hullbreaker Horrors, and I thought we might use some of the Selvala tech, or I thought we might have to use some of the Kinnan tech, if you're familiar with either of those decks. But no, this actually came together really well. I was able to even afford a Birds of Paradise for the deck. Yeah, I think that's it for the video, guys. If you've got questions, let me know. Eager to answer questions. Still able to communicate with all of my, kind of small audience. I'm going to do starting hands too, so I think that'll come up next. I think that'll be important for this particular video. Until next time, guys, word to your mothers and fathers, east and west side until the day that I die, and namaste, nerds.